In this video, we're going to look at drawing an activity network from a precedence table. A precedence table is a list of the activities in a project and what they depend on. So for example, if we were building a house, that would be our project. We couldn't put the roof on until the walls are built. So the activity of putting the roof on depends on the walls being built. We can't put the chimney on until the roof is in place. So the activity of putting the chimney on relies on the roof being in place. So we're dependent on that activity happening before we do the next. In the video, we're going to look at a couple of basic examples of this. Now, in terms of the networks, the activity networks, they're not always unique. These are often open to interpretation or even argument. The idea of the video is to move away from that and look at one possible activity network. So let's start off with a nice case. What I've done here is put together a list of things I want to do before I go out in the snow. So this is now activity A. Activity A is to put my socks on. B is put my boxers on. C is put mittens on. D is put t-shirt on. E is put trousers on. F is put jumper on. G is put shoes on. H is put brace on. I is to put the jacket on. What we're going to do is look at building up what we call a precedence table from these activities. So let's see what's dependent on what. Again, this is open to interpretation. I don't really want to go down the route of arguing. What we'll do is choose one and then model an activity network from it. So let's get up a table. So this is my activity. Each of these activities, what do they depend on? So what I'm going to do is fill this out. So activity A. So this is going to be putting my socks on. Do I need any of the other things to happen before I can do that? The answer is no. So it's dependent on nothing. Putting my boxers on. Does that rely on anything or is it dependent on anything else in this list? The answer is no. So what we'll do is put B and that depends on nothing. Putting mittens on. Now you could suggest that we need to have everything else on before we do this, but in reality we could put them on. We'd look a bit of an idiot standing in boxers, socks and mittens, but it is possible. So what I'm going to have is C. That is dependent on nothing. Putting my t-shirt on, D, activity D. I don't need to do anything in this list to do that. So all of these are not reliant on anything. And what we do when we're doing one of these activity networks is draw what we call an event, which we'll represent with a circle, and then we will branch off with our activities. When we're drawing activity networks, it's better just to do a scribble first and then do a nice neat version in the end. Because often the way in which these events go, it's easier to have the activities going in one direction rather than next. I'll explain that as we go. That was a pretty poor explanation. Okay, now let's look at the activity E. So the activity E, I want to put my trousers on here. So does that depend on any of these? Well, unless I'm some kind of freak who stands in my trousers with boxers on the outside, I'm going to want my boxers on the inside. Therefore, E is dependent on B. I need my boxers on. That is now activity B before the trousers go on. So I'm going to put in here B. Okay, put jumper on. Again, unless I'm some kind of fashion victim, I'm going to have the jumper over the t-shirt. So the t-shirt needs to be on, and that is going to be activity D. So for F to happen, it can't happen until D has happened. Again, you might want to interpret that slightly differently, but let's just leave it where it is for now. G, put my shoes on. I'm going to want my socks on before the shoes go on. So G is dependent on A. So that's what we have. Now let's consider the next thing, H, put braces on. Now if we think about it, the braces are going to go onto the trousers, which are going to go over the jumper. So for H to happen, what we need to have our trousers on. So if we consider now that our trousers are on, that is E. Also we need the jumper on. The jumper on we've seen from here is F. So H is reliant on E and F happening. Now you might say it's reliant on the t-shirt being on. In this table now, let's just grab this. So in the table here, this is the direct dependency. So for example now we've got E here. E is put trousers on. That already depends on the boxers being done. Therefore we don't put B in this list. Don't fall into the trap of having to put B as well. And the same with the t-shirt. If the jumper's on, the t-shirt. If the t-shirt's on, the jumper's on, the t-shirt's on, or the other way around. I'll leave you with that thought. Okay, put jacket on. What's that reliant on? So what's that reliant on is the following. We need to have now our braces on and that will give us now the opportunity to put our our jacket on, because once the braces are on, the jumper is on, the trousers are on, and we're good to go. So this is now a precedence table, and it will allow me to draw an activity network. When we come to draw our activity network, start off with a scribble. I'm going to use these nice symbols here, and we're going to go from there. But to begin with, I'm just going to draw this off. This now is the start event, and we would draw it with a circle. And we usually label that 0. You might see it labelled 1, but this now is the start node or vertex, and we call this an event. An event generally, in this case, will show us that we're either starting or finishing an activity. I'm just going to put some terminology. The first one here is called the source node. So this is the source. The end one is the sink. So source and sink. So let's see what we can start. A, B, C and D don't rely on anything. So what we can do is simply branch these off now as activities. We represent the activity with a straight line and an arrow. I'm going to use these ones later when I tidy it up, and I can put A. Now I don't quite know where this is going to go, whether I'm going to have to bend it round, whether I'm going to have to put it into a different event, but for now I'll just leave it like so. Next one, I've got B. B doesn't depend on anything, so we can start. This is the start of my project. I can just put B on here. I can put C on. C does not depend on anything else, so we can start this at any time from the beginning. D, exactly the same, so let's come down here. Now, if I'd gone straight for this, it would look messy and we'd have to do a bit of manipulation. So what I'm going to do is just work with this. So let's now look here at E. E is reliant on B. So what we would do now is put another event. So this is an event, and I'm going to just label that one. Activity event. So B now is going into this event here, and E will come out, and E is reliant on B. E has to happen once B is finished, and this event here denotes the finishing of B. Okay, let's look now at F. Activity F needs D to be finished. So here we go, and we're putting this up. This is another event, and I'm going to label this 2, and we can branch off from here and say now that from D, F can spring out here. So once D is finished, F can come out. Okay, let's look at the next one. G can start when A is done. So here is another event, and we'll label this 3. You can label these at the end. I think labelling them at the end is going to be a little nicer, but this is giving you some idea of the way you can do it. So let's now come off here, and that's going to be G. Okay, now if we look at H, this is reliant on E and F. So what we've got here is H reliant on E and F. So what I'm going to do is bring E and F together and bring these into one event. So there's E and F, and we'll label this 4. Now from this one right here, H can spring out. Okay, now C is trapped in here. So what I'm going to do is just bring C round this way, and this is just going to help me out. So instead of letting it be trapped in there, and you can look ahead and kind of spot what's going to happen, we'll just take C out so it's not trapped in there. Okay, now if we consider what we've got now, we want H. H is reliant on I, or I should say, sorry, I is reliant on H. So there's H, and what are we up to now? We're up to number 5, and then we can spring I out from here. So once H is done, I can start. Okay, this now means that we can send C to the end, or the sink node. So what we'll do, we'll bring this up here, and we will put the sink node just here. So C goes to the end, I is going to the end, and G is going to the end. So we can bring all of these round like so. Now the reason I know they go into the end, or the sink node, which we'll call number 6, we can see they no longer appear in the precedence table. So this is what we end up with. So here is my source, so source, and then sink, and that's S-O-U-R-S-E rather than source as in brown or red sauce, and this is sink. Okay, so let's go ahead and tidy this up and make it look all very pretty. So what we're going to do is now model this up. So I'm going to put these in place and then just connect the things up. So let's do that. Let's put that like so. and we will have put this one down. Let's put that one down there. Now again, I might have to fiddle about with this, but now I'm in a much better position just to simply now draw this up. And ideally these should be a little smaller, but it doesn't matter too much. So let's do that, and let's put that here. So that can go just here, and I'll put now my start or my source node there. And how many more do we want? We need 6 in total. That's 7 in total. We got 6. So let's grab these up, and we can put that one just there, and then this one just here. So when you're drawing these up, this is what we're going to have. Okay. So how many have we got in total now? That's going to give me my 7. So the reason I've got it like this is such that I can bend C round here. The general the notation or the general way we do things in this particular module is to have the straight lines, hence why I don't want to bend it round. So let's label these up, and I'm just going to label them up, and I'm just going to label them 0. So 0, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So if we look at the first one, we've got A, and A is going to go into number, and I've just labelled it 1, okay? So you might want to label them at the start, and let's just spin that round, and then we'll put that now in place. So let's just make that a little bigger, and that'll go like so. In fact, I'm going to avoid doing this, and I'm just going to use lines. Make it slightly easier. So let's get a shot of that, and I'll just do it in lines. My idea was I was going to use these and they'd look quite nice, but as you can see, it's becoming a bit of a hassle. So this is going to be A, okay? So A is going to go into 1, and I'll just put that like so. So this is going to be A, so there's A. Now we're going to go B. B is going to go into 2, so let's get that up, and B is going to come from here and go into 2. So that's what we have. And again, your drawing is probably going to be slightly nicer than this. So there's B. Then we're going to get D, which is going to go into this one right here. So let's do that. Let's put D into here. So D is going to go just there. And we will have something looking like so. And then we've got C going right to the end. So we can put C to the end, and we'll put C across like so. So it's C, and we'll label that up. So that's what we have, and that's C. Okay, let's now go from B, and we're going from B into E. So B into E is going to look something like that, and we can label that up. It's better that you label them as you go, because that's going to keep your track of what you're doing, and it will be a lot easier to see. We will take now the E, so we've got E in, we've got F. F will go like so, and we can put F on. Ideally, this should have a lot more space in it, but we'll see later some better examples rather than my useless drawing. Okay, so what we've got then, we've got G going to the end, and ideally I want, let's see if we can stretch this out and put that somewhere over there, so at least it looks somewhere near respectable. So let's put C up to here, okay, and we will move that like so. We can take G to the end. So if it doesn't appear in this list, it's going straight to the end. So that's going to come over here. We can put G on. Okay, so let's put G on. G will go to the end. Then we've just got H and I to go from there. So that's now what we're going to look like. So let's put both those on while I'm here. I like to do one at a time, such that I'm not missing out. So let's do that. That's going to be H, and then this is going to now be I. Okay, so that's it, that's done, okay? So that now is our activity network. Yes, you could argue that it would look a lot better if we did it nicer, and you could argue about the numbering, but you might simply want to number it at the end. In hindsight, I'll probably go straight for numbering it at the end, but this is our activity network. Now, if you wanted, from here, we could hide the table. So if we hid the table, in fact, let's just go, let's move all of this down. Let's move that down. Let's go down, and then if we extend down, let's get now just this. And if we wanted to build a precedence table from this, we could check our answer. So if we consider now from here, we can see, and I'll just scribble them here, A depends on nothing. It's coming from the start. B is coming from the start. B depends on nothing. C comes from the start. I've got D here, but we can put C first. D depends on nothing, and C depends on nothing. If we look at E now, E depends on B finishing. So we would now put in B, and we can see this. F relies on D only. So if we put F in, that will rely on D only. If we consider G, the only thing going into this event right here, and we'll put this here, that's reliant on A. If we now look at H, we can see that H is reliant on both E and F finishing. These two things have to end before H can start. So we get E and F. If we look at I only requires H. So if we do that, I is just reliant on H. Now if we go back and look at our table right here, we can see that we got nothing, 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 B, D, A. So we got B, D, A, E, F and H. So if you're unsure when you've drawn it, you can check back. Okay, so let's go ahead and look now at an example of one of these rather than a real life situation. So the precedence table for a project is shown below. Draw the corresponding activity network. Now often you get these wrong. It's perfectly fine to get them wrong. Pencil and paper, rub it out, start again. So what we're going to do is simply set this up. So from here, what we're going to do is start off, and I'll do it just here. Okay, so this is where we're going to start. We can see now that A and B can come from the source node. Remember, the source node, or vertex, is going to be where we start. So let's just bring these up here. A and B, okay? That's A and B. A relies on nothing, B relies on nothing. Now, we go down to C. C is reliant on A, and also D is reliant on A. So, alphabetically, I'm just going to put them here. So that's going to be C, and that's going to be D. So both C and D are reliant on A. Keeping the alphabetical theme, what we've got now is B. We've got E and F are reliant on B. So once B is finished, we can start E. Once B is finished, we can start F. Okay, now if we come down, G is dependent on D. So D must finish, G can start. I don't know where that's going yet, I've not looked ahead. If we now consider that H can start once D is finished, what we'd have now is something looking like this. So the bigger you do this, the better. Okay, if we look at I, for I, now, C and E must finish. Now, I've got C up here and I've got E here. So what I'm going to do is just put now one of our events here. And instead of having C going up this way, I'm going to now bring it down here. Okay? So, bringing it down here, I'm now going to put C here. Obviously, we could have gone round the outside. I like to avoid crossing the things, even if it's for rough. That's what we're going to end up with. So C is coming in here, and let's just move the E so that's a bit clearer to see. So once C and E have finished into this event right here, we can bring the new activity off here, and that will be I. So that's the activity I. If we now consider the next one, what we've got, we've just done this one here. Coming off F is J. So what we'll do, we'll come down, and we will set up now J. This is J. So if we now look at what we've got, on the next one, we've got that K is reliant or depends on G. We've got G, I and J. So what I'm going to do here is just be a bit cheeky and switch these over. Okay, so I'm just going to switch these over. That really doesn't matter. So what I've got now is the following. I've put H up there and I've put G here. So we can now bring another node and bring all of these activities in to this event, this node right here. So we'll bring that up. Now we can start with K. So K can come off from G, I and J. Once G is finished, once I is finished, and once J is finished, once all of those are finished, we can now bring off K. Okay, if we now look at L, L requires H and K to be finished. Well, here's H. Let's bring that down there. H and K are now finished. We take off L and we go simply from L, and L is going to go to the finish. So there is our sync node. Source node, sync node. And you can see I've done a bit of tinkering in between, but in all honesty, that works out quite nice. So let's make this look a bit pretty, and we'll use some of these. So what we're going to do is start off. So we'll start off here, and all I'm doing is looking now, and we'll just grab that up. Again, you might want to do a bit of tinkering with this. I personally like to do it with a pencil and paper, but as I'm on the computer, we can do it anyway, like so. It's not going to look brilliant, but it will give you some idea on how we're doing it. So let's grab up another one. We'll put one just here, and it might need some altering as we go, but it's going to be a better example of what is in front of us. So let's put these on like so. And if you want to label the first ones with numbers, you can do. You can keep that consistent, or we can simply label them from here. So if we consider how many nodes I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've got 5 there, and then I've got 9. So let's go ahead and connect these up. So this is going to be A. So from the start, which is our source node, so 0 will go in here. We've got now the activity A. If we now consider the next one, nothing has to happen before we start activity B, and activity B will come down like so. So if you want to start labeling up from here, what we've got is 1, and if we want we can put 2 here, or we could have put 2 here. It really doesn't matter in terms of how you're doing these. So let's go for the next one. We need now to get C, and we've got now B. Coming from B, we've got E. So how I'm going to do this is just to put now A, this is going to be C, and this is going to be E. So what I've done is just tidy this up slightly, and we've got now C, and we've got now E. So there's C and E, and we will call this one number 3. Okay, so from here we're coming off and we are reading off, and we end up here, and that's going to be D. So we can put D on there, and let's label this up. So D, and this one is going to be number 4. Okay, so from E and C, this one right here, we're going for I. Okay, so let's go for I, and I is going to come into this event. So activity I comes into the event. So here now is I. We'll take F, and we'll label these up. I'll label them as I'm going. That is now going to be F. Let's put that on there. So here is F, and we're up to 5 and 6. Okay, we've got now J. J is coming from the end of F into the end of I, and we can put that on like so. So let's grab that up. So let's do that. So we've got now J. If we consider now we've got G, and this is where this G, I and J come in before we start K. G, I and J are coming in like so. In later videos we'll look at what we call dummies. For now we don't have any dummies in this particular network, but we will in the next video. So that's going to be G. We're going to now come off here. That's going to be K, and I'll just do this one as I'm finishing off. And that's what we're going to have. So let's see what we need. We need, so let's get rid of the G quickly. The G can come, we need to relabel that as we got one more to put on, and that will go from there. So let's go ahead and label these all up. So that's my messy version. It's not too bad, but this is a slightly better, still not brilliant version, but it gives you some idea. So G, H, K, and L. So we've got now that this one was number, what are we up to? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and how many did we have? So let's just count, I've got this right. There's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, that was 6, so this is 7, and this is going to be 8. So there we go, there's our activity network, and that's how we would draw it up. You might want to make this look a little neater by putting this particular node out there. I think it does look neater if we do have a more diamond-like shape. But again, it's purely now, in an exam, you're not going to be penalised for not being Picasso, but you will be penalised if you don't get all of this information on. So there we go, an activity network from a precedence table. Okay, what we're now going to do is go on to look at the activity network and then draw a precedence table from it. So let's look at building this up. So this is where we start. This is the start of our project. So this is what we call the source node, and then the sink node is number 9. So let's look at A. A can start from the beginning. There's nothing that A depends on before we get going. So here's the activity network. We're asked to draw the precedence table to represent the project. So let's look at A. What's A reliant on? It depends on nothing happening. We can start that from the get-go. If we consider B, B can only start now when A has finished, and this is the event here. Event 1 is A finishing. So what we can say is B is dependent on A. If we now consider C, what has to happen for C to start? The answer is A to finish. So C is also dependent on A. Let's now look at D. What has to happen before D can start? The answer is B. The answer is actually A and B, but because we've already got B being dependent on A, we can just simply put in here B. We don't need to put A, as this is direct dependency. So we know that D requires B. Let's look at E. What does E require? Well, E requires C. C requires A, E requires C, so we simply put in now C. If we look at F, if we consider what F requires finishing or relies upon or is dependent upon, E has to finish before F starts. So F depends on E. If we look at G, G needs C to be finished. If we now look at H, H requires both D and F to finish. H can't start before these two activities have hit node 5. Node 5 here, this event is telling me activity D and activity F have both finished. So that requires D and F. Okay, let's look at I. What does I require? I, quite clearly, requires G and G only. J is next. What does J require? J needs G as well. Okay, K, what does K need? K just simply needs I. And then we've got L left. L requires J. Now, if we look at this table here, the letters that we don't have in the table are those going to the end of a project. H goes to the end of a project, and as we can see, it doesn't appear here. K goes to the end of the project. It doesn't appear in here. And L appears in here, doesn't appear in here. L is going to the end of the project. So there we go. That's drawing a precedence table from an activity network that doesn't have dummies. Again, in the next video, we'll look at one with dummies. So hopefully that's given you a good idea on how to draw an activity network from a precedence table and vice versa. So in later videos, we'll go on to some more examples. The idea is to switch your filter off. Your filter is telling you, yes, but you could do that. Yes, but you could do that. Much of this unit is switching that off and just saying, well, we could do it this way. As stated before, often these solutions or these networks are not unique. So there we go. Hopefully that's been of some use, and then we'll go on to the next part in the next video.